There's many sites online, including Hockey Reference, Internet Hockey Database, that has the raw stats of players from throughout NHL, WHA, minor hockey, and world hockey history that don't really tell the whole story. Now, today we're going to be talking about probably, it's something my dad had referenced many years ago as one of the biggest straight shooters in NHL history. Now, Fred O'Donnell, at one point, was probably one of the most discussed players in NHL history because of the stands he took that put his family interests and himself in a good way over, his hockey demands. Now, he started off, he was born in Gananoque, Ontario. But Kingston is his birth area. First came to major prominence, 5'10", 175 right winger, playing with the Oshawa Generals over 3 years with the OHA in 67, 68, and 69. Now, it drew enough interest by Minnesota, and which was kind of bizarre. Oshawa had connections with the Boston Bruins, but Minnesota drafted him. Keep that in mind when I get later on with the information of the podcast. He was taken in the 4th round, 37 overall, a high draft pick. Now, he signed his first contract in 1970 and he had his NHL debut for Boston on October 8, 1972. Now, he eventually was sent to the CHL and was named a Rookie of the Year for 71. Now, he played on the 1971-72 Boston team, the Braves, that shared AHL regular season title, and he was eventually sent to Boston to Minnesota to complete the future transaction portion of the May 7th, 1969 trade, a few months before, in which Minnesota sent Barry Gibbs and Tommy Williams to Boston in exchange for a 1969 first-round pick. Ended up being Don Tannehill and future career considerations. Now, O'Donnell's career in the NHL was extremely brief and somewhat turbulent. He initially refused to sign with Minnesota after being drafted by the North Stars and enrolled at Queen's University for the 1970 school year. By making this move, O'Donnell was able to convince Minnesota to trade him to Boston, about the trade we just mentioned, an organization he knew well from having played for the Bruins' former junior team in Oshawa. He was a regular for 2 seasons with the Bruins, but on February 7, 1974, when Boston decided to trade him to Vancouver, he refused to report to Canucks because his wife was pregnant with the couple's first child. Now, the trade was announced right after O'Donnell had an assist and fought St. Louis enforcer Bob Gassoff in what proved to be his final NHL game. Now, on February 9th, the Canucks officially suspended O'Donnell, and this made national news in Canada without pay, but he remained away from the team for more than 2 weeks. Now, during this time, he worked out a deal to jump to the WHA with the New England Whalers for the 75 season. Still talk about, the Boston region. Now, once the deal was finalized, O'Donnell reported to Vancouver on February 26, 74, and offered to play for the Canucks for the balance of the 74 season to run out his NHL contract. However, Vancouver coach Phil Maloney was not interested in having a player with O'Donnell's, as he said, attitude and send him home. Now, O'Donnell eventually waited out the rest of the season and joined New England for the 75 campaign. Now, by jumping to the WHA in such an abrupt fashion, many in the media felt O'Donnell effectively blackballed himself from ever returning to the NHL because of the animosity between the two leagues. Now, 2 years later, the Whalers dealt O'Donnell to the former Cleveland Crusaders franchise, but he had no interest in playing for that team, which was in the process of relocating to South Florida at the time he was traded there. The Florida move later fell through, and the Crusaders instead opted to relocate to Minnesota, the same place he originally refused to go when drafted in the NHL. Now, because of this, he opted to retire from pro hockey and went over to Ontario to complete his education. Now, the trade to Boston again was with Chris Odlison, where the Vancouver exchanged for Bobby Schmutz, finally. Now, the trade to New England with Bob McNamara to Florida was the exchange for Wayne Connolly and the future considerations. Now, Frederick James O'Donnell, as he was birthday name, was nicknamed Ferd. He started a post-hockey career by being Queen's University head coach prior to the 88 season and remained in that position through 1985. He was named Kingston's head coach in August 85 and held position through the 1987 season. Now, he was also Kingston general manager in August 85 and remained that position again until 87. Now, his business degree paid off. He got that from Queens and attended summer school there during off seasons of his playing career. Now, he eventually remained in Kingston and pursued a career in real estate after retiring from coaching. Now, he became a very successful sales representative with Roy Lepage, and get this, he also joined the Ottawa Senators alumni team to take part in old-timers games as he was an active men's league player. Now, the only problem with O'Donnell, I think that was a factor in a way, that he suffered a severe eye injury in 1972 in the playoffs. The injury did plague him for the rest of his career and also factored in a decision to retire. Now, other details of his career, he was also selected by the Jets in the 72 WHA draft in February 72. He also played on a big line with Boston with Rich LeDuc and Don Tannehill in 72. He also had a hat trick for New England of the WHA on March 11, 75 versus the team that drafted Winnipeg. And he also worked as a New England Radio color commentator while injured during the 75 season. So a very interesting Renaissance man. Now, 2 seasons with Boston, NHL totals, 15 goals, 11 assists, 26 points in 115 games, 1 assist in the playoffs. Scored 20 goals with New England, or 21, 75. Final WHA totals, 32, 26, 58, and the playoffs, 257. AHL with the Braves, 38 points in 62 games. And in the CHL with the Oklahoma City Blazers, over 2 seasons, 1 partial and 1 full, 69 games, 50 points, 25 goals. And the OHA, again, his best season was his last, 31 goals, 27 assists for 58 points, and again, which led to that draft by Minnesota. Now, because of his great efforts as a coach and builder, he was inducted in the Kingston District Sports Hall of Fame, very well deserving induction. And like I said, a very, very literate guy, and it really paid off as well with Kingston, because over 2 seasons he put some really, really nice numbers. And his best season with Kingston was the 86 campaign, of course, where he got 4th in the Leiden division with a 35-28-3 record, losing in the second round. Now, woulda, shoulda, coulda. If he would have stayed in the NHL, I think he would have scored easily 20 goals like he did in the WHA. But back then, sometimes athletes were treated like dogs. And if you had a head on your shoulders, some people like Fred O'Donnell. There was another case of a player was claimed by his coach to be weak because he wanted to stay behind and be there for the birth of his child. But to my recollection, he was the first one. There was major press on this, especially the Quebec media for some reason, because he felt that he was being not say disrespected, but what he call his whole family was to be disrespected. That's your first child, and you know if that's an important thing. It's not like a 7 or 8 or 9 Catholic child where when a child comes every 14 months or 12 months. But I want to know. My dad used to tell me. My dad was a big fan of all the Boston players. He said O'Donnell had talent. Is sort of similar to kind of a Brian Scruglin with a little bit of Mike McPhee's tenacity. And that's the biggest compliment you can give to anybody, to have that kind of what they call 2 heads of the Montreal Canadiens rough style of the 1980s. So that's a legend of Fred O'Donnell. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And like I said, when we do the podcast here, I research different things, hockey news, Hockey Draft Central, Wikipedia, different stuff. There's a lot going on in the lives of players. You just look at the statistics. You're saying to yourself, well, he only scored, He only played close to 200 games in Major League Hockey. But look what he did. Maybe there was somebody who was motivated by what he did and took that example and applied it in their own life. That's what you need to do. You got to stand up for yourself. If you're a player in the NHL and you made it, you're not, a slave of certitude there. If your wife is important and you're working for her, why would you go into the mines or the smelter or whatever? You're allowed to be with your wife when they're about to have their baby. It's not your fault you want to be with your beloved when they have a child. It's the fault of management. And the 1950s and 60s NHL management or owner bullshit was not going to work in the 70s because, the 1970s it was free thinking and he was a smart guy. I'm not speaking for him, but he probably said, I'm going to be with my wife. And I think it was the right decision. And I would support any athlete to do that. Fred O'Donnell or... See, I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan. If I'm supporting a Boston Bruin player, I think it's important. Anyway, have a good day. Bye.